Sunpak Auto 4205G hammerhead flash unit. It's also known as the Auto 544. It's attached here to a Pentax LX film camera. It was sold during the film era. Don't know the exact dates. It's a guide number of 42 meters with no beam angle adapters, which puts it in the high power category. It was aimed at the professional market, and at the time there was a large range of accessories available for it, which it shared with some of the other Sunpak hammerheads. It's similar to the Sunpak 455, which I covered in another review, and some of what I say here will be a repeat of that because I want this review to stand on its own. The Sunpak model numbers are quite confusing, by the way. It fixes to the camera by this bracket attached to the camera with the tripod screw socket here. It can be detached from the bracket by loosening this thumb screw and then pressing it in like a button. This lets you hold the unit up separately from the camera like a torch if you want, and also makes it easier to change its batteries or to change the film in a film camera, or simply to store it away. When you fit it, this thumb screw should be tightened up to stop it being pressed accidentally and the unit falling apart. You can loosen these two screws in here to turn this clamp around the other way on the handle in order to mount it on the opposite side of the camera if that's what you prefer. It's also possible to attach it at different angles to aim up at the ceiling, but that's really a hangover from other Sunpak hammerheads which didn't have a swivel head, which this does. The 544 doesn't have dedication to any particular cameras. That's not such a disadvantage with digital cameras because old flash units don't offer much in the way of dedication to modern cameras anyway. It attaches to the camera with this sync lead. It plugs into the side of here with a tiny jack plug and into the X socket of the camera. If the camera doesn't have a X-sync socket, or if it's inconvenient to use it, you can attach one of these adapters into the camera hot shoe receptacle and plug into this instead. The sync lead attachment on these has been criticised as being easy to break the circuit board inside here if you're a bit rough with that. Looking at the back, there's a 3-position switch here which goes downwards for an external power supply which would come in through this socket here. That could be from a mains unit which you might use in a studio, or from an external high voltage battery pack on a shoulder strap or belt attachment, which would be used by press or event photographers for a larger number of shots and for rapid firing. In the up position it runs on the internal batteries. On the right is a switch to choose between auto and manual mode. The manual mode is marked M for manual, PR and MD for power ratio and motor drive. Sunpak make quite a lot of that terminology, but it's all just means manual mode. When you switch it to auto, this green light comes on. The auto and manual control dials are on opposite sides of the unit. They're similar type to some other Sunpak hammerheads of that time, such as the Auto 3600. I'll deal with this manual dial first. You set the film speed or sensitivity by turning this outer knurled ring to set the number opposite this white mark here. I'll set it to ISO 400. It's marked as ASA, which is the old terminology for the ISO. There's also a row of DIN numbers, which is an even older film speed system. Don't worry about that. either side of the white marker are some red and blue ones there to use if you've got one of the telephoto or wide angle adapters, which I don't have. In the centre there's a wing nut shaped knob marked PR, which actually means power ratio. This really does control the power of the unit, and it reduces the flash power from full, which is at the moment, down to a 64th in third of a stop steps. In doing so, it does change the relationship between f-stop and distance on this scale. For example, at 1/8 power, which it is now, the recommended aperture for a 5 metre subject distance is f5.6. The advantage is of using a lower power so as not to blind the subject, as this is a very powerful flash unit if they're closer, and also to use a larger aperture possibly to throw a background out of focus. Also it recharges quicker and you get more shots from the battery because you're using less power. The two lowest power modes are 32nd and 64th, and they're marked in yellow. And when you change them, they bring up a yellow light on the back of the unit, which we've now switched on and is in the manual mode. There's nothing technically different about these two power levels, despite the yellow light coming on. It's just that Sunpak recommend them for use with motor drive because the unit can recharge more quickly at these low power levels. The same idea is applicable to continuous shooting in with a digital camera. So in all there are no less than a 7-stop range of manual power levels at 1/3 stop intervals, which is pretty good for a flash unit. Some flash units only have a single manual power level. For the auto mode, we first change the switch on the back, the auto mode, and the unit will then be controlled by the photocell on the front. And we use the dial on the opposite side of the head. The auto mode dial has its own film speed or sensitivity selector in red down below. And having set that, you can choose any one of the 4 aperture values shown in this upper window, and you select one by turning the wing nut marked A to place a more transparent part of the window over the value that you want. The distance shown in this black part of the scale then becomes the maximum distance over which the flash will be effective. The wing nut does electrically change the amount of illumination which is required to come back to the photocell on the front. The ISO can be set from 25 up to 800 in the auto mode, same as in the manual mode. With digital cameras these days, they don't usually go down to 25. Mine goes only down to 100, but it goes well above 800, so you're a bit restricted in the range that you can use with a digital camera. Nevertheless, because you can change a digital camera ISO sensitivity on the fly, there's actually quite a large range of apertures that you could use with this in the auto mode. For example, if I wanted to take a subject which is 5.5 meters away, which is a value on this scale, I could set the camera ISO to 800 and the lens aperture to f22. On the other hand, I could set the sensitivity to 100 ISO, change the power of this thing with the central wing nut, and use an aperture of f2.8. In fact, in this setting I could take a picture up to 15 meters away, but being in auto it would be good for anything less than that as well, including 5.5 meters. Notice that the maximum subject distance that this can be used in the auto mode is fixed at 15 meters, no matter what the ISO sensitivity or lens aperture is. If you want a larger subject distance than 15 meters, you need to go back to the manual mode. In the auto mode, the ready light is also a button to make the unit fire a test flash without actually taking a photo, and this light here will shine green if the illumination is adequate. I'll try that now. Obviously it was at this range of only a few inches. The head can tilt up to the vertical and also swivel round through 360 degrees altogether. You could get clip-on adapters that went onto the front here for telephoto, wide angle and colour gel filters. Shared those adapters with other large Sunpak hammerheads. The method that they attached by clipping on here wasn't very good, to be honest. This model seems to have been sold in the European market as the 4205G. It was also sold in the American market as the 544. There's no difference between the two except for the number on the front. In particular, you get both feet and meters on the distance scale for both markets, which is a pity because it just adds to the clutter on the back. It takes 6 AA batteries in this holder. I find it's fiddly to get the batteries in and out of this, so if they're rechargeables, I recharge this as a block using an external power supply to these contacts. In fact, Sunpak did sell a block similar to this and a separate charger. Probably be very hard to find those these days. The trigger voltage for this is only about 6 volts, so it's safe to use on modern cameras. Beware that some film era flash units had very high trigger voltages which would damage the electronics of a modern camera. Unfortunately, they don't make hammerhead units these days, so if you want one you must look at the used market because they've gone out of fashion. It's a shame because large hot shoe units can overstress their own feet, or even worse, the camera shoe receptacle. But hammerheads attach the strongest point to the camera, which is a tripod screw. You can buy these quite cheaply now. This one costs £10 on eBay, but you might find it difficult to find the additional accessories. If you do buy one of these, make sure that you get the battery carrier with it, the clamp on the handle, which for some reason some people take off and throw away, and the bracket, because the thing will be useless without those, and some people sell those additional accessories separately for more than the price of an entire outfit sometimes. With these, they don't use a special sync lead like some of the other Sunpak hammerheads do, so that's not such a critical item. Thanks for watching.